We're going to kick off our personal stories panel with someone whom if you have not had the pleasure of meeting Nancy Churlo, now's your chance. And I promise you that she is going to find a special place in your heart right away. She has an incredible story, an incredible bond with her brother, and her brother is somebody that we all owe a debt of gratitude to as well. So I'm looking forward to all of you being able to hear her story. Let's give a big round of applause to Nancy Churlo.
So hi, I'm here just to tell you what my brother's life was like and how it affected me and you and all of us, I think, okay? So Frank, he was born on October 22nd, 1956 to Hungarian immigrants. At the time, there were no resources for children that were not neurotypical. Frank did not walk until he was 3 years old. When he started school, it was apparent that he had a learning disability. We realized as an adult that he also had dyslexia. He was painfully shy, and my mom sought out psychiatrists to try to figure out what was wrong. But of course, there was never a diagnosis. We went to Catholic school, and Frank was promoted from one year to the next grade level. And by the time he was in the 4th grade, he was unable to read and unable to do math. And at that point, Frank went to public school and was placed in special education classes where he learned how to read and he acquired basic life skills in math. He was able to count his pay. He was able to go to the store and estimate how much to give the cashier for his purchases. For example, he always, if his bill was $16, he always had every denomination of money in his wallet. So if his bill was $16, he would give the cashier a $20 bill, and it was close. You know, the amount of money was close, so he may not have been able to calculate exactly that he got the right amount of change, but he was happy with that. For high school, he went to a vocational high school to learn a trade. Mom was able to get him a job in the town where we lived as a laborer in the recreation department, where he shoveled snow, he cut grass, he painted playground equipment, and he worked at that position for 25 years. Frank was a very dedicated employee. He never complained about the job that he was handed in the morning, even when it was to clean the restrooms in the park. He was very mild-mannered. He loved his job and his coworkers, and he was always the first one at work every morning. At 38 years old, though, he showed signs of what looked like Parkinson's disease. Slow motor skills, slow reaction time when driving. He came home from work very exhausted. He was not able to bring the fork to his mouth. He would drop his head to the dish and shovel the food into his mouth. We went to local neurologists, and with medication, he was able to work for 10 more years. At 48 years old, Frank had to retire because things got bad at the job. He was falling down, he was having car accidents with the town truck, and his balance was so off. The last job he was able to accomplish was to stab trash with a stick that had a nail at the end because he couldn't bend over anymore to pick anything up. At this point, we took Frank to doctors at Columbia University in New York City, where they asked him to donate his brain for Parkinson's research at his death. Frank's cognition was that of a 12 to 14-year-old, and the decision was difficult for him to make. Mom explained to him that this wouldn't happen till after his death, and that maybe he could help someone to have a better life because his was very difficult. And at that point, he said yes. Frank was wheelchair-bound at 55 years old. He never outwardly complained about his inabilities, but he documented his days with cartoon sketches and short stories in journals every day for as long as he could write. Frank wanted desperately to walk, so he had a deep brain stimulator, which did not work. Frank took medications 10 times a day, which helped him with his condition, but caused compulsive disorder. He would eat an entire box of ice cream bars and want to go back to the store to get more. He would play hundreds of scratch-off lottery tickets and never really check if he was a winner. There was a convenience store on our corner that he could go to in his wheelchair, and the owner loved to see him come in and spend. I think he just liked the scratching motion of the tickets. I had to put him on an allowance at this point to control his spending. Frank passed away at age 60 on March the 1st, 2017, from aspiration pneumonia. Frank never had physical therapy as a child, only as an adult after hospital stays, but never made any progress. As children, I never noticed any, excuse me, I can't read. As children, I never noticed any physical differences in physical play, but I was 3 years younger than him, and we could have possibly been on the same developmental level. Excuse me. My parents created social circles for Frank, bowling, swimming, Boy Scouts. Many times as a child, I felt in second place because Frank needed so much more attention than I did to thrive. As an adult, I included him as my third child in our family vacations and celebrations. As we got older, I became involved in his everyday care. He lived with me for 11 years. My role changed from sister to caregiver. We built a home to accommodate his needs, and we took him to the best physicians that I could find. This community means everything to me. We, as a family, did everything that we knew how, but we never got the correct diagnosis to give Frank what he needed. Only after his donation did we learn what Frank's life condition was. He had PPP2R5D with an E200K variant. With Frank's wish to help at least one person to have a better life, it is so heartwarming to see how these families support each other and realize that you are not alone on this journey. For me, I attend this conference to follow the progress of the research that I feel Frank is a big contributor to, and to sharing the hope and the promise that all these children will have a chance to have a better life. Thank you.
In the beginning, it felt like the ground was pulled out from under us. And I remember we were quite overwhelmed with what does this mean for Beran? How is it going to affect him as he's growing up? Currently, we're learning, he's not walking right now and he's nonverbal, but he's shown some progress a little bit. Beran, through given the rarity of this condition at the time, the information was scarce and hard to get to. And when we looked into what we can do, in each information we collected was crucial for his development. And finally, we came across Jordan Garden Angels, which they are truly the ones that got us on the right pathway here, learning about Jordan's syndrome. All of a sudden, we had access to research about our kids and our children and resources, and of course, the communities. You are people that understand our true feelings and our hopes and our triumphs. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for that, JGA. Sorry. Thank you. So we found out about our diagnosis about 2 years ago, and that was just before the family conference in New York City. And for the first time, we were able to meet families with the same condition as my child has, and that really was a positive thing for us to learn from others. We shared stories, we gave tips to each other, and it was just a great experience. And we realized then that we were not alone in this, and really appreciate it. We developed great relationships back then, and we're still talking with the same families, and even got to know more families this year, which I really, really appreciate. Learning from you has been great and really wonderful. One of the most important lessons we've learned is the importance of community and sport. The rare nature of Beran's condition brought us together with a network of families, medical professional organizations dedicated to research and sport, and their collective knowledge and empathy have been the lifeline for us, offering guidance, hope, and sense of solidarity. And this is why I volunteered to become an ambassador for the Canadian region, and hoping to get to know them, learn from them, and try to facilitate the communication between the organization and Canadian families, and hopefully in the end get together to do some fundraising events and contribute our share from our community to this wonderful cause. And to all the medical doctors that's involved in the medical research, your experience, compassion, and dedication are immeasurable, and you've given us hope for the future, and thank you so much. And for anyone else that's contributing to this, of course. And to my son, Beran, I love you. You are my hero. And I've learned a lot from you. I've learned to celebrate little things and not to worry about small things anymore. And I seek to forever take care of you. And thank you so much for listening to my story.
Hello, good morning. We are Noelia and Juan Carlos. We come from Madrid in Spain. We are trying to tell us our experience with therapies with our little son, Carlos. I'm sure that all of you knows that when we get the news that we have a child with this different life, everything changes in your life. Everything changes in your home, your relationship, and everything. So I remember when we were told that, the doctor told us that it was easier to win 3 times in a week the lottery than to have a son like ours. But let's forget those things, those sad things, and let's try to be a little bit happier. When we started the therapies, Carlos was only 6-7 months old, so he was very small and he could not move on the bed. So we took him to therapies, and then we have our homework. We had to move him 5 times one side, 10 times another, take an arm in this way, put a finger in his knee and the waist somewhere else. So it was completely a chaos. Maybe for someone that can be a therapist, he can do it, but when you try to do it alone at your home, it's a completely chaos. So at the end of the day, we were arguing because you have done it wrong, put the finger in that eye or something else. But I think that we all have had this problem. But facing the things in another way of doing, we started to try to give him the most possibilities that we could. So we started to go to the physical therapies. We took him to animals therapies with dogs and horses. We took him to, I remember sorry, my wife was going to write all the things, but she has decided to give me all the responsibility. So I have not the paper. Well, Carol, thanks for my divorce. No, well, I remember once I was going to talk about the therapist. Yes, we took him to a musical therapy because he loves music. It was funny because we said, well, we have the Fridays afternoon free because all the other days have different therapies. So as he's, between brackets, suffering therapies, let's try to get something that can be fun for him. He can have something that can avoid all the problems of the week. So with music could be helpful for him. The first day we asked the teacher, how is he? Oh, perfect. The second day, perfect. And the third day I asked her, what is he doing? Because I thought that he was playing the instrument, the piano, something. And she said, no, I start playing music, low music, and 5 minutes later, he's completely asleep. So we skip it all. But now, as we can say, well, we try to give him all the therapies we can. We have two kind of therapies for the speech. One of them at the school with the computer device, with the signals. At the very beginning, he was not able to touch the screen. He was doing everything with the optical mouse, fixing the eyes on the screen. Now he's able to touch the screen, and believe me, he does it better than us. And the other way, on the other way, we started 3 months ago with a speech therapy. He's starting to say some vowels. He's able to say in Spanish, A, E, I, O. It's easier than in English because in English you use two vowels for the same one. You say A instead of A, so it's much easier for us. And he's starting to say ma is the beginning of mama, mother, mommy, and is the starting of más, more. So when you feed him, he say ma. it means more. So we are starting. And the other word he just learned is pa. Papa is father in Spanish, but pan is bread. So when you feed him, he says pa, to be given bread. So, well, that's our experience with the therapies. I can tell you that we have been searching a lot of places where we could take him to those therapies, and it's hard to find the good person or the right persons to give the therapies. And that's all. I don't know if my wife wants to say something.
Esto es como una carrera de fondo que solamente nos hemos puesto el cordón.
No. We are a team. We are dressed in the same way. We are a team. So yeah.
Bueno, yo lo voy a decir en español. Nuestra experiencia, la verdad, es que ha sido grande en este grupo. Estamos muy contentos con todo lo que se ha avanzado. Y lo que sí que quiero decir que esto es una carrera de fondo y que solamente nos hemos puesto las zapatillas, que tenemos un camino muy largo para avanzar. Y bueno, gracias y gracias a ti.
So just she has said that she's proud of all of us, all of you, and thank you very much. We are starting a race. We are only in the beginning, but we will arrive to the finish line. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, Daryl, Cooper, and I are the parents of Fiona. She's 9, and we're from Florida. Yeah, it's better. Yeah. I moved to this country about 15 years ago after I got married. Growing up in Costa Rica, I'd always been a very overprotected and spoiled kid. Moving meant leaving my entire big Latin family, my friends, and the life I'd known for 30-something years. When you're young, you usually make lots of plans and imagine your future. Even if you're not big on planning, you probably have an idea of how you want things to be. I mean, you've seen your family and friends get married, have kids, get dogs, the whole enchilada, so you think it's safe to assume your life is going to take a similar path. I've always been more like the unexpected person, but I've always known I needed and I wanted to be a mom. No worries, right? Shouldn't be difficult. And then life starts happening. No one really expects to have to struggle with infertility, but suddenly we were there. We went through all the tests, the pills, the shots, the procedures, the anxiety, and finally, the immense joy we found when we found out that we were expecting. Being a mom was my dream, and finally, it was going to happen. After a normal pregnancy and a scheduled C-section without any complications, we finally welcomed our daughter, Fiona. She was, and still is, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and we immediately fell in love with her. But life wasn't done with us yet, and 3 months later, it threw us an epic curveball that hit me in between the eyes, went through my heart, and left a big hole in it that I'm still trying to patch. At 3 months old, Fiona started having seizures. That was the beginning of the scariest, hardest, and most shattering thing we've ever had to face. About a year later, while in the office of our geneticist, and after a multitude of blood work scans, tests, and lumbar punctures, we received the news no parent ever wants to hear. There is something wrong with your child. It's called the PPP2R5D mutation. I've struggled with depression since adolescence. It took a long time, effort, and lots of help for me to feel better and learn how to cope. I now find myself in another country with almost all my support system far away. Daryl has no other family nearby. It was already proving to be a challenge getting used to just being the two of us most of the time. When you grow up around your big family, sometimes the silence and loneliness are very difficult to bear. I was raised a Catholic, and before and throughout my entire pregnancy, I used to pray to God. Please, God, don't send me a child with problems. You know I can barely deal with myself, and you know I wouldn't be able to handle it. Fiona's diagnosis was like a hard slap on my face, and I felt obliterated. The black hole opened again, much bigger this time, and I fell in head first. I really don't remember much of the early years, except that I cried a lot, and there were endless medical appointments. Without my parents nearby, Daryl had to pick up my pieces and not let me sink, while also dealing with his own feelings. I admire his strength, and he's always been my rock. Along with Fiona's diagnosis came a referral to a Facebook group created by a few parents of kids with the same mutation. It took me several months to muster the courage to look at their page and finally join. When we joined, Fiona was child number 13 or so. I now had to come to terms with the fact that my prayers seemed to have fallen on deaf ears. We were parents of a special needs child. This was the hand that we were dealt, and now we must figure out how to move forward. To say that our journey up to this point has been difficult is an understatement. Like I mentioned before, it's always been basically the two of us raising our child without the helpful hand of grandparents or uncles, aunts. We also had to move to Central Florida and left a couple dear friends we have. Now we barely see them. Sometimes I feel really lonely. We are very lucky and grateful to have good insurance through Medicaid that covers her costly medication and her medical needs. Today, most of our difficulties have to do with the lack of good services to support her behavioral needs. Unfortunately, our city doesn't have a lot of good therapy options. She has her ST, her OT, and we go swimming once a week, but we've really had a hard time finding a place where she can get consistent and professional help to overcome her behavioral issues and be able to go to school. The behavioral centers are few, are not great, have long waiting lists, or only see younger children. While we transition to a new center, she's home with me, and I have to try to work. I've had to put off trying to find a better job because our child is completely dependent on us. Additionally, I must take her to all her therapists and appointments, so it's been difficult to find a job that pays well and allows you to have such flexibility of a schedule. All of this is extremely stressful and takes a toll on your mind and body. Some days are good, but some days are bad. As you get older, all the stress starts having physical manifestation. Emotional exhaustion is real. Sometimes I feel like I carry the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I feel guilty because maybe I could be doing so much more to help her, but at the same time, I'm completely exhausted. Sometimes I feel hopeless, and thoughts about the future leave me paralyzed with fear and anxiety. Sometimes I don't know how to deal with the fact that, to me, my daughter is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I love her to pieces. Her laughter fills me up with joy, and yet she's also a reminder that I will never experience the motherhood I had always dreamed of. I've had to try to learn how to cope with and mourn my loss. It's been a long process, and some days I feel I'm going back instead of forth. I've been Fiona's mom for 9 years, and I've learned a lot. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to find joy in the small things, to shamelessly dance and sing in the supermarket aisles just to see my daughter smile. I've learned not to judge and that you should treat everyone with kindness and love. I've learned that I'm much stronger than I thought. I've learned that meltdowns in public happen to everybody, that family is always above everything else, that my husband and I are a unit, and that we'll always work better together. I've also learned, and this is very important, that if I am not okay, my family is not okay. And so I must make the effort to take care of my body and my mind. I go to therapy, not as much as I wish, but I find it helps a lot to have someone who listens and can give you a different perspective on things. I like to work out too. Unfortunately, I'm not doing it as much as I did before, because lately my body has been reminding me that jumping up and down and lifting heavy things in our 30s is not the same as in your late 40s. A good workout, especially if you have boxing gloves and something to punch, is a great way to feel invigorated. I highly recommend punching your anger away. Whenever I can, I do something different with my hands. I crochet, I paint, I sew. Keeping busy is a great way to avoid negative thoughts. I find solace in thinking we were blessed to find and join this big, wonderful family that will always have our back. In my heart, I cherish all the experiences we've had together and find courage and motivation when I hear their stories. I am extremely grateful for all the hard work that all the doctors, scientists, and members of JGA do every day, because they have given us hope, and that hope is what keeps me going. The reason I share this with you all is that I want to remind you of how important it is to take care of your physical and your mental health. If your head is not well, the rest of your body will not work well. Mental health carries a stigma that needs to be canceled. Society loves canceling things, so I propose we cancel the stigma of mental health illness. No one should feel bad when there's help available. In case you didn't know, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to admit you're tired. It's okay to cry and feel frustrated and sad. It's okay to say no and remove negative people from your life. It's okay to say you need medication because you are really depressed, and there's absolutely no shame in it. Don't forget who you are as an individual, and do the things that make you happy or relaxed. And more importantly, don't feel guilty and find time for yourself. Your family will thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pooja Saxena, and I'm Juhi's mom.
Hello, I'm Pritesh Patel, Juhi's dad. Juhi's 9, and she has 2 younger brothers, Sid and Sahil. We wanted to talk a little bit about our personal story related to Juhi's diagnosis of seizures and how it affects her and how we've managed the seizures. So Juhi's our first child. She had an uncomplicated pregnancy, thankfully didn't have to go to the ICU and came home with us. We were first-time parents. We both have a medical background, but the ensuing first 18 to 24 months of our child's lives are completely overwhelming. We were overwhelmed with all the doctor's visits and slowly realizing what was happening. Juhi has a type of seizure that's called myoclonic epilepsy. It's a generalized seizure, but it's very, very subtle. It's not the whole body shaking. It's just a very quick little movement of her upper extremities. So actually it was happening probably for a very long time, and we never even noticed. We thought she was startling or something like this, and that was hard to deal with, knowing that we probably missed it for a while. But eventually, we were sent to a neurologist and had all the testing and were diagnosed with epilepsy, along with the missed milestones and the large head and the weakness in the body. And so that is what led us to a geneticist, and it was actually the epilepsy that led to her diagnosis of PPP2R5D. A genetic panel was sent targeted for epilepsy, and that's where we found it. And they were, from their side of the table, they were excited to have an answer. They said, "Hey, good news, we found something," and of course, we know what that means.
We were devastated.
So we've tried a number of medications for her. I mean, epilepsy, of course, as for those of us who deal with it, I mean, it pervades really everything in our kids' lives. Some hopefully are well managed, some aren't, but the medications all have side effects. We've tried a number. She was very little when she was diagnosed, so Keppra was probably the first one we went on. It didn't work that well. Then we tried Klonopin, and that made her very, very sleepy, so we decided to come off that. And that's when we made a tough choice as a family, I think, to go and meet with the ketogenic clinic where we live.
And that's when they taught us about the ketogenic diet, which is a diet that we put Juhi on for 2 years, from age 2 to age 4, to help control her seizures. So most of us, we eat a carbohydrate-rich diet, and that's how we fuel our body. But the ketogenic diet is fueling the body through fat. and a very high amount of fat. And so that's what we did. That's what we started doing for Juhi. At that time, she was just eating pureed foods, so we essentially cooked every single thing that she ate at home. And first, she started out at a 3-to-1 ratio, which means, she had 3 times the amount of fat related to the amount of protein plus carbs. So everything had to be weighed, everything had to be cooked, and at the end of the day, she could have less than 20 carbs, per day. So it definitely did change, our family's life, but it was extremely, extremely effective for controlling her seizures. She went down to just 1 medication, Onfi, and the ketogenic diet for about 2 years. We were under the care of a ketogenic clinic at Children's Hospital of Atlanta, where we live. And we met with a dietitian regularly, and they did blood work to make sure that Juhi had all of the necessary vitamins. But it was a big, effort. As she started to gain more milestones and she started exploring food more, she wanted to eat crunchier things, and that was the next step in her progress, to go from soft solids to solids. And we just couldn't make it work with the ketogenic diet, so we had to liberalize. So at that point, when she was 4, we came off of the diet. Some other sources that were helpful were the Charlie's Foundation website. If anyone, is interested in the ketogenic diet, they're great. They have a lot of recipes on there, support groups, how to get started. charliesfoundation.org is a great website.
So want to talk a little bit about the impact of seizures on Juhi and all our kids. I've heard this said maybe a couple different times, but I'm not a neurologist, but I think that this disorganization of electrical activity seems to be common for all the kids. I mean, maybe not even, some have seizures, but some don't, but things aren't firing exactly right. And of course, the researchers are starting to tell us why that might be or how it's different. It seems like it's overactive. And one of our doctors, I thought, gave us a nice analogy that it's like watching a TV screen, but it's got the white snow for a lot of the time, and once in a while you get the picture of what it is you're watching. And so that's kind of how I view Juhi's seizures and the disorganization that she has to deal with all the time. And the better that we can do to treat those seizures, of course, to me, it's like she's getting glimpses of what's actually the way we see it. And so when she's tired, when she's out of her routine, when she's stressed out, it seems like this disorganization gets a lot worse and the seizures get a lot worse. COVID was absolutely terrible because they put us in front of a screen for school all day and the seizures were horrible and we had to stop. And so, we try to find ways to keep her away from the types of things that worsen her seizures, and thankfully they're pretty well controlled on the 2 medicines she's on now, which are Onfi and Depakote, which are the 2 common ones that we saw yesterday.
And, over the years, we have noticed that as we have to go up on these medications to help control her seizure activity, as she gains weight, she has to dose up on the medications. She does have a slight increase in impulsivity, so some of the medications, may cause that, or sometimes they make her feel really drowsy. Sometimes she has a little bit more drooling with some of the medications, and then we always have to do the lab work every 3 months or so. So our hope is that as we move forward, that we will find something that will help reduce the need for Juhi to be on the seizure meds, so that we can see more of herself, more of her sassy personality. And we're also aware, because I hear from other parents, other moms, that as kids grow up and go into puberty, maybe seizure activity gets worse. So that's always sort of a fear of mine, that it might get worse during that time.
And we just wanted to, again, recognize Carol and Joe and all of you and the amazing research team for this, all the amazing work that's being done. You know, for us as parents, even if there's one little thing that got a little bit better, maybe it won't show up in the results of the trial, but that's a big win for us, you know, with our lives. And so I'm sure that we'll see small wins. I hope it shows up in the overall results of the trial. It may not, but those small wins, of course, we will all hang on to and continue to go forward as a group. And just thank you, everyone, for letting us be here with you all and to be in this journey with you.
How about one more round of applause for our panel? We want to pause for a moment for our regular agenda. We want to bring Joe back up to the stage. He does have to depart this afternoon and wanted to say a few remarks before he had to leave Boston. So please welcome Joe Lang.
Wow. You know, standing up here, I can't help but feel how awesome it is to look at you all and to see this large group, a lot of common things, and a big goal that we have. And I want to thank you all for participating again. For the families who just shared their challenges, I want to thank them for having the courage to stand up and do that. We all have those challenges. We all know, I've talked to enough of you over the last few days, how similar the challenges we are, how we try to overcome them, and at the same time, maintain hope. Our job, Carol, Candace, Kayla, Christina, the research team led by Wendy, and our job is to provide that hope. What I can tell you is the hope is there. I think you've heard some pretty amazing new announcements that we've made. You know, being ready to do clinical trials with our children on our first treatment with more in the pipeline in the short time, really, relatively, that we've been working on this, is really nothing short of a miracle. I know that's what it will take for our children, but we're on the road for that. It's in some ways, very inspiring. Those stories are very inspiring to us all. Now we need to take the next step. We're getting ready to start the trials, as you heard, hopefully this fall. Hopefully we'll have some very good data. The mouse trial data is very promising for us, and I think the research team is all very excited, and I think optimistic as well. And there's reason for us to be optimistic. Now what we have to do is we have to kind of take that next step. Right? It's interesting, when you start a process like this, I kind of view it in 3 phases. The first phase, our first family conference, the amazing things that were talked about, all the things that the research team hypothesized and theorized. It had to leave chills, and it had to really inspire you. It was very exciting. It was so interesting, that first family conference, to meet 26 families from around the world who had actually taken a chance, like, who is Joe? Who is Jordan's Guardian Angels? Why am I traveling halfway around the world to meet with them and a research team? But it was pretty darn amazing. And so that first phase we talked about is sort of that phase of excitement, like, okay, there is hope. Then we enter the second phase, which is really, I call it the slog. It's basically doing all of the work. and getting all of the research done and meeting every quarter and sometimes every month. And of course, the research team sometimes talking to each other every day. And that's just the slog of doing that work. We had to do that work. We had to learn about what the mutation does, how it works to impact our children. And in doing that, we could begin to think about how to impact that, right? How to change that. Well, we're not totally out of the slog yet, but I would tell you, and barely, I don't know, you can shake your head yes or no, but I think, we're about 80% of the way through the slog. So much so that they've learned so much with that collaboration that we're ready to start taking the next step, which I talk about, which is the third phase, which is all of a sudden, all these really exciting things that we talked about at our first family conference and our second family conference, and all the work that was done by the research team, my God, it's becoming real. That's a whole different phase. You think about, oh my gosh, all this stuff we've been dreaming about and working so hard on now has a chance actually to be real. It's actually real. We can touch it and feel it. I'm absolutely convinced we're going to help our children in a lot of different ways. But in that third phase, which is like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is happening. Yes, we're going to help our children. We're going to find improvements. Also comes probably the biggest amount of responsibility. Being able to work as we all have as a team to get through that first phase, set up the team, get the work started, then support that team financially over 5 years, all to get to this point. And it's been good, and we've worked together and we've done that. But that next phase, the phase that offers the most hope, right? That we're going to actually find treatments and cures for our children, it's the most expensive, unfortunately. Not impossible, because if there's one thing I've learned about this team and all of us together, there's nothing that's impossible. You have to think back where we started. There's nothing that's impossible with this group. And now it's just like, okay, what do we do? We're in that third phase. For those of you who enjoy American football, sometimes getting the ball down to the goal line is one thing, and then getting it over the goal line is a whole different thing. That's where we're at right now. We need to get it over the goal line. When I talked yesterday about what that was like initially, with Wendy Chung saying, okay, Joe, we're going to have to raise at least $20 million. I knew we had to make that commitment. I made the commitment that night. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew we were going to. Because you have to take that approach and you have to do everything. What I found in making that commitment, choosing to start, things happen. I could tell you so many different things that it's like, nothing short of a whole series of miracles that have happened in how we got here, both in terms of discoveries by the research team, in terms of funding that has come sometimes almost unexpectedly, and sometimes just when we needed it. But it takes that first step, making the commitment. When you do that, when you join the deep end of the pool with us, I promise you a couple things. One, you won't be alone in the deep end of the pool. We'll never let you drown. We won't let you fail. But when you do that, I also promise you things will happen that you won't anticipate. You'll look and say, how can I make a commitment to help? You won't know exactly how. We have an amazing toolbox for you. We have amazing ways that we can help you. And sometimes it's very simple. Sometimes it's as simple as a Facebook birthday fundraiser. And I'll promise you one thing, because I know that you've seen it already, that if you do one of those, we'll all be the first contributors, because we will make sure that you're successful. And you will be, because you'll find out that things will happen, whether it's that or a different type of event you want to put on, or reaching out to family, or reaching out to folks in your state or in your country and finding out ways for them to help. And some of that's already happened. Some grants have been in, even in Europe. It takes starting. It takes just having just enough confidence to say, I'm going to jump in the deep end of the pool with the rest of them. And I promise you, if you do that, we'll be right there with you. We'll be paddling really just as hard. We'll have some ways to help you do it. I know many of you have already started to help, and I can't tell you how thankful we are. We know that because we had to jump in the deep end of the pool too. And when you do that, you begin to really appreciate when other people come join you in that deep end of the pool. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Unfortunately, human trials are expensive. There's a lot of protocols to go through. There's a lot of travel involved. There's 3 clinics to get established. We're there, and I want you to know we're there, and we've got the ability to do that. But we need help because along the way, there will be some things that come along that we as a group, we as a foundation, we as families are going to have to do to help the researchers in this final phase. Sometimes we'll get emails or calls saying, I need, one more machine to help me do this. I'm sorry, I'm used to talking with a microphone. Or we'll get a call and we need to sponsor a research conference of people who are experts in this field so that our team can join them and help learn from them and get more people on our team. Those things come along, and we're there. That's our job. Our job is to help facilitate all those things, all with the goal in mind that we're going to have treatments and a cure for our children, and we're going to have it as soon as possible. I can tell you, one thing you can totally rely on, we are moving as fast as we can. And as much as we talked yesterday about 3 years from the beginning of the trial to actually having things available throughout the world, we're going to do it faster than that. And I can tell you that because you got to have that confidence, and it's how things have gone. It's about getting into the deep end of the pool. When you find out and you're willing to get into the deep end of the pool, it's not so deep. And by God, I got a lot of friends there, and they'll help me. And before you know it, we're all having fun, because it is fun. Candace is going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that you all can make that commitment and help. Join us in the deep end of the pool. I promise you, you won't be alone. We'll be there right with you, and we'll do this. We are going to do this. But we need your help. And not afraid to say that. I think we've all collectively done an amazing job so far to be at phase 3, to be ready to do all this exciting stuff for our children. Right now, join us in the deep end of the pool. I promise you won't be disappointed. I promise you'll actually have fun. It's not scary. And you'll be helping your child and all of our children to succeed. So thank you. What a wonderful, thank you all for coming. I know, Carol, closing remarks a little bit, but I know we've got a few more things to do. But from me, from Jordan, from our family, from our team, thank you so much. And please come join us in the deep end of the pool, and I'll guarantee you have fun.
Joe, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa McCarty. My son Liam is 15. We live in Fresno, California, which is in the Central Valley of California. I'm also a special education teacher, teaching in elementary school.
Hello, as many of you know, I am Matt Schwartz. My wife is here with our son Josh. You've probably seen him running around the hallway giving fist bumps to everyone. I'm also one of the many few that have this variant, have this gene. So far I've lived 43 years, and we live in Ashtabula, Ohio. It's a long driveway here. I'm sure you guys have driven a lot more further than I have.
My name is Elena Goloborodko. I'm a mother of Anastasia. Anastasia is 24. We were diagnosed about 10 years ago. Before that, it was a long journey and a misdiagnosis before we got to the point when we were told that she had PPP2R5D. So, yep, happy to answer any questions about school, about adult life, and the challenges that we deal with on a daily basis.
Hello, I'm Adeline, and I'm Adeline's mommy. We come from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and Adeline would be 30 this year. And I'm willing to answer any questions if I can help anybody at all.
I'm Isaac Elliott. I am Emmett's dad. Emmett has the PPP2R5C variant, and my wife Sharon out there is in the audience. She's also a special education teacher. We've been working primarily on behavioral and epilepsy have been two of Emmett's biggest challenges. So any questions along those lines, happy to answer.
I'm Randy Halverson, mom of Jessica Bates. She's 27. She's the youngest of 5 children. We're from Pennsylvania, and I am not only her mom, but her biggest advocate.
That's for sure. Lots of great advocates here on this panel. All right, let's look at the day-to-day. Many of you are parents to adults living with Jordan syndrome. So can we talk about what that day-to-day life looks like for them now as they've gotten older? Randy, we'll start with you.
Jessica, her present situation is she lives in a group home. She lives with one other lady. Very, very difficult situation, very difficult decision for me to have her move away from my care. I could care for her the best, but actually it was the best thing to do because independence is the key. And expectations, I always try to keep high for her. And her siblings, none of them live with me. They're all on their own. So Jessica is in a group home with one other woman. She has a full schedule every day. She is all about schedules, as I'm sure many of your kids are or will be. She works with a job coach next to her to keep her focused and on task. She works in a coffee roaster. She works in a food pantry. She's had various other jobs as well. Each just not full 8-hour days, but for a few hours each day. She then does activities that she enjoys, along with some therapy still. She does equestrian therapy. She also does music therapy. And she gets her nails done, which is her thing. And keeping her busy every day from activity to activity, I found is key to keeping anxiety low, keeping her focused, and also tiring her out for the end of the day so we could do the best we can with sleep. So that's basically what her day looks like at this point.
Oh, yes. If you have not heard it and had a chance yet, Randy and I sat down for a podcast for A Rare Reality, and it's very honest, very raw, very, very important messaging. So if you have a moment, please take a minute, take a look at it. It's on our website. It's on many of the platforms that you can listen to your podcasts on. It's also on YouTube for translation services as well. So take a listen because it's so important, and it will bring you a lot of new insight as well. Randy, you were incredible. So Adeline, let's talk a little bit about Adeline and find out about what her daily life looks like.
Adeline has left school from the age of 19. She goes to daycare every day, 9 to 3. And unfortunately, where we live, there are no services. It stopped once she left school. They don't give them services and daycare as such. She thoroughly enjoys going to daycare, and they do keep her busy, doing different things. She's on a one-to-one, so she doesn't like to be in too many large spaces with people in it. But the whole thing is to try and tire her out so that she does sleep every day, you know, every night. She can be very challenging. She does have challenging behaviours at times. And that's when I've found it harder as I've got older. Adeline will be 30 her next birthday, and I'll be 60 my next birthday. And as I get older, I'm finding I can't cope with Adeline as well as I used to be honest. We're thinking along the same lines of letting Adeline go somewhere. We can still see her every day, but somebody else looking after her for us. But with Adeline having such challenging behaviour at times, we're finding it really, really difficult because everybody wants the normal disabled person, unfortunately, you know, the easier to cope with. And whenever you see Adeline on printed paper, she looks a total nightmare. And she's not really, if you sort of read between the lines and learn her wee ways, it's so much easier, you know. But it is, it's my main worry is what happens to Adeline whenever I'm not here anymore. So I think it is in any special needs parent.
And I think it's a conversation that many have had or will have and continue to have on a regular basis. And I know it's not a decision that's made lightly. Can you speak a little bit to your plans for the future?
Hopefully, we've got funding through for Adeline to have a full-time one-to-one, but it's so expensive, so it is. It's, you know, like the one, we did turn this one down, but it was £4,200 a week.
A week?
A week. And it didn't really fit in with her, if you know what I mean. It was somewhere for her to go and they would have took her okay, but it wasn't offering her a good sort of balanced life as such. I want her to be able to do the things that she can do at home and somebody just to be there for her. So I'm finding it very, very hard to get somewhere that I would be happy for her to go.
Right.
So,
We'll come back to that because that's part of the broader conversation this afternoon too. But Elena, talk a little bit about the day-to-day.
Anastasia is at home with us, and I guess I've heard this, and you all did throughout the conference. It depends a lot on where you are in the moment and where you live in this world, what resources are available to you. We are extremely fortunate to be New York State residents, and we have a variety of resources and programs that provide really solid support for Anastasia and for our family, to give us respite, to ensure that Anastasia has very active lifestyle. This program is called Community Habilitation, and it's chosen by us, by parents. We have support, daily support from the agency, and this individual takes my daughter to all the activities. She has a very active day, like echoing Randy here. We try to keep it planned, and she's all about planning. She has a planner where we write down where she's supposed to go. She has her therapist throughout the week. She has a gym, a personal trainer. She goes to clay school. She likes to work on pottery, and she works with a one-to-one instructor. So her life is very active. And then she is very tired at the end of the day, and she needs about 10 hours sleep, which is good. She likes to be in the community. We live in Ithaca. It's home to Cornell University and Ithaca College. Ithaca College has a wonderful resource. It's called Social Skills Program, where kids with various difficulties like speech, for example, or social skills where they need intervention, they get together, and students who are becoming future speech pathologists, they work with them. So Anastasia has been going to this program for, I think, 10 years, and it's really helpful to develop the social skills. And you probably saw her trying to start a conversation, talk about the nail polish and all that stuff. So that's, I think it's all the results of this, of having these resources available to us. And again, I guess we just very fortunate to have these opportunities in her life.
Matt, to you now, you're currently living with Jordan syndrome, and if you have not heard Matt's podcast either, it's worth a listen. We talked a lot about what day-to-day life looks like, and one of the things that we touched on, Matt, was what you're doing differently now for Josh than you had done for you when you were younger. So can you talk a little bit about that, like what you wish had been done differently for you as well, and what you're doing now for Josh?
There's not much. We're doing a lot more now. It's back in the 80s, they didn't know what this variant was. It's a lot different now. There's all this research team is out here researching, and they're making headways. Josh now has I don't know how many different therapies. He's in a lot of therapies, and he's improving a lot. If you just get behind your kids and encourage them keep on fighting through everything. One of these days, they're all going to get up and surprise the crap out of you guys. They're going to get up and walk, and they're going to dance, give you fist bumps, and tire you out when they're running around the hallways.
It's true. It is true.
He has endless energy. I don't know where he gets it from. Not from me. But
Matt.
it's a good experience. Knowing that my mom and dad knew that I had something wrong with me, but they didn't know what it was, because they didn't have the team like we have now. We've got an awesome team behind us. Take that on and keep working on the research, guys. We need this.
Yes, please keep going. Quickly, before we move on to school choices, if you do have questions, please take them to the end of the aisle or hold them up. Carol's going to come around and pick them up so that we can get to those as well. So let us know if you have some out there. Lisa, as an educator yourself, how did you make the decision for public versus private school?
So we live in California, and California has some of the best, I think, in the nation as far as services available, including in public school. For us, it was an easy decision because I worked at the same school that Liam attended. So I knew who he was with, his actual paraprofessionals, his teacher. I could check in. They would pop by my classroom and give me information. So that made it an easier choice for us than I know that a lot of people have. Private school options are very far and few between. Where we're at, there is ABA therapy centers, but most of our students, and Liam did this as well, we actually had in-home ABA that came to our house after school hours. And then there's some centers where students will go. So they will go to the public school, and then they go to ABA therapy a couple hours a week after school. So that was our journey. So a little bit of private if you consider the ABA portions, and he was in ABA therapy for about 5 years. That was not offered through the school system, but we have regional centers, and our state pays for that. So we were well funded for him to be able to get those therapies.
Lots of decisions to be made. Questions are coming. For parents of young ladies, how do you approach adolescence? Randy, I see you nodding.
Adolescence was, for Jessica and for myself, for me, I was anticipating something really big to happen. She was going to have a big seizure, or something was going to be earth-shattering. But when she started her cycle, it was not a big deal for her. It was a bigger deal for me, and she dealt fine, and we got through it. However, going along with that, for girls, what I find personally with Jessica to this day is the week before her cycle, we have a lot more challenges, just like any other lady would get premenstrual, she does, but she doesn't have the same regulation abilities that we do. So her behavior gets a little unfiltered during that time and a little more challenging. She gets a bit more anxious. If she's going to have self-injury, which she does occasionally, it's always right before her period starts. If she cries, it's right before her period starts. So in that aspect, moving from adolescence to where she is now, those challenges continued, and no real medication combination seems to help. We just deal with it. I talk to her. We know what it is and what to expect. It is a bit of walking on eggshells for me because I hate to see her being so upset. But some months are easier than others, just like with any woman. So that was our biggest experience with adolescence.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
When Adeline was 10, she had her first main big seizure, and they think that it was because she was starting her cycle. About a month after right enough, she did start her cycle, and the seizures lasted for 4 years, really quite bad ones. And thankfully, they have stopped since then. So from she was 14, she hasn't had any seizures as such. When she has her period, the week before, she would be very irritated and heady out, and you kind of know just to take that step away and sort of, it's sheer frustration as well with her not having any speech. You can sort of see it all building up in her, you know. Mm-hmm. She doesn't really change. She gets a wee bit lethargic in that the week that she does have her period, and she would be a wee bit lie-abouty, and we give her extra chocolate as you do, you know, so sweets. But it doesn't affect her day to day, you know, sort of. It's not a big major thing. She just goes through it and she's happy enough. So,
okay. We want to talk about planning. We have a question about planning, but I want to get to you, Isaac, really quickly, because you guys made a very difficult decision to move your family across the country. You made a plan to make a change, to change the way that you're able to receive some assistance. For Emmett, can you talk about making that decision and why you made it and what that's like for all of you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I mentioned Emmett's age. He's 15 when I introduced. So yeah, we were in the Northwest, and we're on 2 waiting lists, one for Monroe Meyer in Omaha, Nebraska, and the other one was Kennedy Krager in Baltimore. We're still on the waiting list for Baltimore, but we came up on Monroe Meyer, and they're a program, if you're not familiar, that works with severe problem behavior where you have self-injury that can get so bad that it can do real serious damage. Emmett had bruising on his face starting at age 3, thereabouts. He started kind of hitting as he's gotten older. It's gotten more significant and more dangerous for us to really be able to block that effectively and keep him safe. We've gotten very good at that, and Sharon and I have kind of been able to train some people to block, and with the assistance of ABA therapy, we have gotten more comfortable working with him. And the Monroe Meyer program in Omaha was, of course, a difficult decision. I work remotely, so for me it was a little easier. I was able to keep my job to move halfway across the country, but that's what you got to do. I mean, for us, that was an option, and one that we thankfully were able to make work. We got established there, and one of the most remarkable things we found after going through Monroe-Meyer was actually that the school district we landed in, just by sheer luck, is one of the best in the area with special needs supports, and we've gotten plugged in there with a really great community. The guy who's working with Emmett actually came from that school district, so he's here with us, traveled from Omaha to Boston to help out. So the move wasn't easy. We made it happen, but I think, again, that's what you got to do when you have a small list of options, and we're hopeful that the program there and the supports will keep helping us as Emmett gets bigger and we get stronger, hopefully, to keep up with them.
It's funny how life has a plan for you too, right? Things
right.
sometimes just happen the right way. A question from the audience now. How are you as panel members planning for retirement given the monumental support costs needed to keep your children busy and having a life that's worth living and busy and happy?
So my husband's a police officer and works for an agency that's very well funded. They have a couple different ways to do retirement. And then I'm a teacher. So both of us will be able to retire in our 50s. Ideally, he'll retire at 54, and I can retire at 58. So that's pretty young in the world of retirement. And we will be well funded in that. So that's something that we've looked at conscientiously since Liam was a baby. We're also building a shop. My husband's a woodworker, with the plan that Liam would actually be able to work in the shop. He can easily probably get the CNC machine going and put things together. So we're actually kind of building our own sheltered type workshop for Liam, that he would be able to be employed through a company. And my husband and I have the rights to the company. We have it for a year and a half now. So it's just starting to launch our own company, and that's kind of our plan. In the state of California, we also have our regional center system. Part of the regional center system, there's several ways that families can get care for their loved one. One of our close family friends, he's a little older than I am now, but he is very much like Liam. I grew up next door to them. And when talking with his mom, she was able to, basically it's kind of almost like it's a care home, but they're with another family. So her son is with a family. It's a stay-at-home mom. She's got 2 younger kids, and she also helps take care of him. And then there's adult day programs as well, where they go out during the day. They have their adult day program where they work in the community, or they have different activities. And then at home, that is his home now. So she can still visit her son, but he's not directly in their house. So that's one option that we will also look at as we get older and know that we might not be able to handle some behaviors that he has. So that's kind of our overall plan.
Anyone else want to chime in on that as well? Plans for retirement.
When I think of plans for retirement, I just think of where will Jessica be when I'm not around, or I'm unable to actively advocate for her. So it's very important to me, and I'm not quite there yet, that she has a meaningful work to do, a safe and meaningful environment to live in, and that she is as independent as possible. And she has older siblings, but I don't want them to feel like they are responsible for her care when I'm unable to steer, and monitor like I am now. Because there will come a day. I'm definitely getting older. I'm in my late 50s, and I feel it in my body many times, and I just know it's really a reality, more so than it was when I was a young mommy in my 30s and 40s. So retirement, looking to the future for her, I just have to keep working toward making her as independent as possible, finding that place for her where she could live and get the supports that she needs and feel okay about it. But it's still a journey that I'm most definitely walking at this point.
I want to switch gears now to self-care, because we listened earlier to Lucy and how vulnerable and how honest and raw she was about her journey as well. And every single one of you out there was nodding along with what she had to say. And I think that it's so important to touch on that, because we don't always think of ourselves when you're a parent dealing with the day-to-day and trying to move through it. So how do you, as parents, make sure that your battery is full and that you're able to, as she said, I need to be okay so my family is okay? So how do you do that as parents to be able to be okay? Lisa, you want to start?
So much like Lucy, she punches a punching bag. I'm actually big into weightlifting. Part of that is because as I get older, I know that I'm going to actually need strength for Liam, and so that's kind of how it started for me. But it's a lot more than that. Obviously, exercise, you know, you hear all the doctors and all the things saying you have to exercise, and it is really, really hard sometimes to get that exercise in. I exercise usually in my bedroom, and Liam's bedroom is right next to ours. And I'm literally listening to him scatter all of his toys and do all of his things, but I have had to teach myself that 30 minutes is mine, it's worth it, and I'm going to do that even if he is scattering all of his toys, because we can pick those up in like 5 minutes when we're done. And I know where he's at. So that's my biggest piece, has been exercising and making sure that I'm eating right. I literally track it because I know if I don't track it, I won't actually know what I actually did throughout the day for myself. So that's how I take care of me.
Matt, how do you take care of yourself?
That's an interesting question. How do I take care of myself? You guys gotta just, as much your kids, you guys know with your kids, there's not much sleep involved. But I get up in the morning and 5 o'clock wakes up, I have to go to work and let my wife deal with the tantrums and all that kind of fun stuff. And I come back and it's on my turn, my time to deal with Josh's fits and my daughter's fits, all the fist bumps and running around. Then it's quiet time and they go to bed and it's time to sigh and it's the parents' night out. Time to sleep if we can. I'm sure a lot of you guys are dealing with that. No sleep.
I think it's universal, yes. Elena, how about you?
Well, I exercise. I do yoga. I try to do it every day. I try to eat right and enjoy every moment, just mentally. Thank God I have this moment. Anna and I, we go to church regularly, and that's one, although I'm with her, it is one of my respites as well. I try to read whenever I can, and just, to go out with my girlfriends once in a while. We live in a beautiful Finger Lakes area, and there are a lot of parks and venues to get that respite, even if it's very short. But I have to convince every single one of you here, please do it for yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to give that oxygen mask to your loved ones. Mm-hmm. You need to take care of yourself mentally and physically.
Adeline, to you.
I would advise everybody to take respite when they can. A lot of younger ones of, I couldn't leave my wee one away with somebody that I don't know. I would say to them, please do, because you do need that time out. I like massages and foot massages and all that, so it's like a pamper. I go away every year, and we have done from Madeline was a baby, with my two friends who also have special needs children. And that's our time just to, we turn our phones off and we just sort of really don't try not and think about what's at home as such. And that's how we get through it. But I would definitely encourage everybody to use the respite when it's offered, if it's offered. So, definitely.
Isaac, from a dad's perspective, what do you do for self-care?
I play disc golf once in a while, like every other weekend, every 3 weekends or so. I usually take my younger kid out as well to get some time outside when it's nice. I also work out as much as I can. I think that's probably the one that I let slip a little too much because it for me at least, it gives me an immediate boost, but I don't always make time for that. So yeah, it's very important to make that time where you can have time to focus on something that you really like. For me, I also it's really important for me as a partner to prioritize the time when Sharon can go out and do things as well, because it's not just one person's time. I think like having the balance so that you both have protected time. We have it on our calendar. Every other weekend you have free time for a block of hours. Then you don't need to even think about planning it. It's on the calendar. Do whatever you want for 3 hours minimum, like every other Saturday. So that's something that we started doing, and I think that's helpful. Sharon goes out for, because she's not up here too, but she goes out on hikes. Found a group in Omaha to connect, especially if anybody else is moving around. That's another thing I heard come up earlier, the lack of a support system potentially. So like your own personal time and self-care can mean reaching out to other people and maybe opening up a community that can help you get motivated to get out as well. But yeah, for me, that's what I do.
And Randy, I'll have you, and you bring it up in the end here. What do you do for self-care to make sure that your battery's full?
So self-care for me when Jessica was younger was very, very difficult. I was really, I was the only one that could take the best care of her, and I had a very difficult time entrusting her to anyone else. So I wasn't the best. I'm not the best person to talk about that when she was younger. As she got older, I have to be very mindful, because even though she does live in a group home, she does come home every week. I do have to be mindful, and I'm involved in her everyday life very much, that I do take time to read, even if it's just 15 minutes a day, to do something for me. On a higher level, I foster cats. That's just something that I really like to do, and it's a nice distraction for me. But I could never do that when Jessica was younger because the care was much more involved at that time. So yeah, just take, even if it's just 10 minutes, even just 5 minutes, take that time, whether it's prayer, meditation, quick exercise, whatever it may be, to clear your mind, and it will make you a better parent, able to deal with the challenges that you have with your child.
Let's switch to siblings now, because it's always a conversation about finding that balance. How do you balance between the care that the siblings need, but also that your children need? How do you make that happen? So not only how do you balance that, but also how did you get the siblings involved in the diagnosis? Was it a conversation that you started, or was it a conversation that they asked first? Lisa, do you want to start with that?
So Liam is the baby of 2. Jamie is 17, will be 18 in a week and a half. And I think Jamie was always along for the ride, because when Liam was born, Jamie was 2.5. We didn't get his diagnosis of Jordan syndrome until he was 7. So Jamie was 10 years old, GATE student, so pretty bright. We weren't going to be able to hide anything, and we never have. Jamie knows a lot about genetics and probably can do a mini talk about our chromosomes and how that works. So we've always been open about that in our house. From a sibling standpoint, I think Jamie always has known that something was different with Liam. It wasn't anything that we ever had to point out. I remember driving in the car one day, and I had handed like a fruit snack or something back, like the pack, to Jamie, and without missing a beat, Jamie's like, "Here, Liam." You know, I've never had to say, "Okay, you need to share with your sibling now." It just has always been different. I will say Jamie does not understand those differences when they go to somebody else's house and their siblings fighting, like in a typical sibling fashion, because we don't have that in our house. It's, "Liam, please get out of my room," and he just goes, which is not typical. I had a typical brother. That's not how that worked. So we've always been completely open with everything that's happened for Liam, and Jamie's always been a great support. Much like the others have said, we try to make sure that Jamie knows that Liam isn't, I don't want to say burden, but not, we try to make sure the responsibility lands solidly on us unless Jamie is wanting to help in some capacity with Liam.
Isaac, can you speak to that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So Emmett has a younger brother. Sebastian is 9. And I think for us, one of our challenges is figuring out how to get them to connect organically in a way that works. There's, as I'm sure some people have experienced, dropping Sebastian off at school. He's concerned with what his classmates will feel, and that's kind of where he's at right now. But I also recognize that it's his life, it's his brother's life as well, so those things will change over time. And as others have said, making sure that Sebastian is empowered to help and to play. He's done SBT sessions, so like ABA therapy session work with Emmett in a way that actually has worked out really well. He's been able to be involved and feel like he can do something without being necessarily a burden to him, that he feels like he has to do this. But like go grabbing things like that. Those little interactions have been, I think, what we've been focusing on bringing in there, and we know that more will come later. The Sib Shop this afternoon, for instance, like that was great 2 years ago in New York, and I'm really looking forward to it for Sebastian because there's a lot of really good stuff happening there. So yeah, that's what we try to do, and try to support that kind of, I don't know, connection wherever possible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a question from the audience. How have the conversations gone as they have become more aware of the differences with older peers? Anyone want to field that one? Elena? Mm-hmm.
So we have two children. Our son is 35. He's very bright, Cornell University graduate. He lives in Los Angeles. But he has been through our journey with Anastasia since the time she was born. And it's kind of, speaking of organically, it comes organically to him, taking care of her, but at the same time treating her as a typical person, not making a big deal about her different abilities. So he takes a good care of her. He loves her very much. He is a second in line in our guardianship agreement. So speaking of retirement or when we are not around to take care of her, he will be her caregiver.
All right, another question from the audience as well. Aside from the go-to interventions like OT, PT, SLP, what other treatments or programs have helped your children? Maybe something that we haven't even heard of yet. Randy, go ahead.
This isn't an unusual treatment, but it really helped Jessica in many ways, was equestrian therapy or hippotherapy. Horseback riding has really been a wonderful way for her to increase muscle tone when she was younger. Really helped her trunk and her hold her body steady, helped with her balance. But she was always afraid of animals, and she still is. So to be interacting with a large, very large horse from the beginning, she wouldn't even go into a barn. That has really helped her in a really a holistic way in dealing with animals, but also confidence-wise. It's amazing when I see her now. She lays down on the horse, and her therapist has her doing all kinds of things, hitting the number. So if you have access to equestrian therapy, I would strongly recommend it, even if it starts out just for the physical benefits of improving muscle tone and balance. There'll be more benefits that your child will reap from that.
And couldn't lift her head off the pony it was, and the very first day, and the time she'd finished, she was able to sit, and she had such a core, and even to this day, she would. It has benefited her big time. So it did. It was one of the best therapies that she ever went to. That and hydrotherapy as well. And we've been, like, I've tried oxygen therapy, which didn't really work. And so over the years, we've just tried different things that have come up. And some work and some don't. So you just put it down to experience. But she definitely, it did change her life, was the pony riding. It definitely helped her.
How did you explain Jordan syndrome to your child with Jordan syndrome?
We didn't really. Adeline is just who Adeline is, if you know what I mean. She's two older sisters, and when they were young, they always just knew that Adeline was different, and they didn't have any problems at school. They just accepted that Adeline was Adeline and wouldn't let anybody say bad about her, if you know what I mean. So I always defended her. And I have 4 grandchildren, and they've grown up as well. That's just the norm, and they didn't make any difference at all. They just, you know, they knew she was different, and they knew that they had to be careful around her and that, but they just treat her as Adeline, you know, so, which was nice.
I love this question. I think it's so important. What advice or encouragement would you give to new families or those of us with younger children?
As a mom, we often like to guilt trip ourselves into everything that we do or don't do. And so my biggest advice would be give yourself a lot of grace. You're doing an amazing job, whether you're, because we judge ourselves most harshly. That's what my experience has been in the special education world and as a mom. So giving ourselves a lot of grace and a lot of credit, really, for the amazing things that we do each day. Try to find at least a few positive things that happen, because there's so many days where it's really easy to go down that negative rabbit hole. But I guarantee if you sit down at the end of the day and think, okay, what's at least 1 or 2 positive things that happened today, there's some really amazing things that our kids do throughout the day. And those little things will make the difference and will kind of carry you on the really tough days.
What other pieces of advice? Because I think this is so important. The encouragement from all of you who have been there is so important, especially for our new families.
I would encourage everyone, every parent, to mainstream your child with PPP to our 5D or another variant. Mainstream as much as possible. Have them in the community, and don't apologize for anything, for any behavioral, anything that your child might say or point or something, some odd behaviors others might see. Don't apologize for that. And I have to say, yes, give yourself a lot of credit. You're doing an amazing job.
I'd love to reinforce the don't apologize thing. I definitely struggled with that at the start, and I would say only maybe recently I've gotten a little more comfortable when Emmett's making sounds or if something's happening, just like that's him. That's part of what he goes through just to be able to exist in the world, and he's doing a lot and has been through a lot. So like recognizing that's been very helpful. The thing I'd hit on is advocating. Obviously, everybody here is advocating in one way or another, but like being able to step into a room, whether it's with medical professionals, educators, whoever it is, and you are there representing your child in a different way. Even if you're new to this, like you're still the expert on your kid, and you can bring real information that is helpful to whoever you're talking with. Wendy hit on it yesterday as well. I wanted to highlight that the way a lot of the researchers look at what parents can provide extends to those conversations with educators and other medical professionals. So they need that information from you. Don't be shy. Tell people what your kid needs.
I would say go with your gut. I've sat in many a doctor's surgery and she won't do this, she won't do that, and she'll never do this. And I just picked her up and went, well, we'll see. And that was it. I walked out, and that was the best thing I ever did. And I would never, ever let anybody sort of bombard me into doing anything that I didn't think was right, because I know her better than they do, and that's the way to go.
Absolutely, yes.
I have one more that I was thinking of, and that is the comparison game.
Yeah.
We like to try to play that. We do that with all of our children. We do that as people, but that is my number one thing that I had to squash really fast when he was little, because it made me a negative person to say, well, great, look, that child's doing X, Y, Z, and Liam still isn't. So if there's one like big thing that I personally, and I still have to do it to this day, I don't compare him to anybody else. He's just Liam.
And let's do this down the line. We only have a couple of minutes left, so I want to hear, what's the one takeaway that you want our families to hear today? I think that that's so important. Don't compare, because it doesn't do anybody any good in the long run. Matt, what's your one takeaway?
Probably the one thing that I would leave with you guys today would be to treat your kids just like their brother or their sister. They're living human beings, even though they can't talk or walk. Treat them like you love them, like you're normal. I know there's a lot of kids here that can't walk and talk, and I've often felt bad because Josh is out here running around and giving everyone else fist bumps and seeing all these kids in wheelchairs. And I'm walking around. I'm talking, and you guys have kids that can't walk and talk. But I'm here to encourage anyone that needs help. If you need help, if you need encouragement, come talk to me, or I'm sure these guys will too.
Mm-hmm. Elena, what's your one takeaway for our families?
Well, stay strong and believe in the future, in the bright future of your kid.
Yes, this is one thing that Jordan's guardian angels gave me, because Adeline was 21 when she was first diagnosed, and I had really not give up hope, but I just took Adeline for who Adeline is. But whenever I joined in here, it gave me hope. It gave me, well, even if it changes just one wee thing, it'll help her. And that's all. Anything that will help Adeline, I'm happy to do. So,
Isaac?
It's tough to pick one, but I don't know. There are multiple prongs. So focusing on what will make your day-to-day as amazing as possible. So like setting everything up so that you can have those amazing moments, and looking to the future of a potential for therapeutics as something that can directly help, but focusing on those two, like the hope generation from that, and seeing all the beautiful moments every day that do stand out, as was mentioned earlier.
Your kids are smart. It's clouded with a lot of behavioral, a lot of medical issues, but they're smart. And I've found that with Jessica, that even though she didn't talk when other kids talked, that she didn't walk when other kids walked, that she may have been sitting there like this, looking like she wasn't paying attention with drool, or staring into space or looking at her hand. She understood. So keep that in perspective. Keep your expectations high of your child. Don't lower those expectations. Don't compare them with other children. Our kids will never have some of the issues that neurotypical kids will have. They have their own, they're their own special people. But keep your expectations of what they can do very high, because they're smart. It's in there. We just have to figure out for the individual child how to tap into that. And you would be, I know I'm floored at what Jessica understands that she can't always express.
Smart and wonderful. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to our incredible panel. Thank you for all the insight and the advice. I know that it's definitely valued by this group, so thank you all very, very, very much.